Hi folks, welcome back to How to CAD Almost Anything MIT Summer 2026 edition. Today we are in session 2, so let's get started. Our agenda for today involves the following topics. Since we are asynchronous right now, I don't get to ask you what questions do you have from the previous session, so we'll jump straight into today's demo of Creo commands, which involve spline and sketch picture. What are these? Well, let me first show you the project that we have lined up for today. Today, the idea is to CAD these three: the electric guitar, the ukulele, and the marine core. And if you think about it, these are not that difficult to CAD if you use the commands that we'll be learning today. In essence, I'll teach you first how to bring a picture into your working environment. For instance, a top view of the ukulele as an example. That's what we're going to start with in just a moment. And then using spline, what you're able to do is trace the outer edges as an example by laying out points, and then these are going to be automatically connected using Creo. So that allows you to make pretty complex shapes that you'll be able to extract by looking at the picture. Otherwise, it's kind of difficult to free draw it from eyesight only, so the picture definitely helps a lot. And these guys are actually not very difficult to CAD also because we've already learned a lot in session 1. And essentially, we're going to build these layer by layer. We'll start by drawing one main sketch. We're going to call this one the primary sketch. And from there, we're just going to lay out all of the different features from just tracing out the picture. So for instance, in the ukulele, I would put like all of the outline, then add those little bars in the middle, the top part in there. And then in all subsequent sketches, we're just gonna always use our command that we learned last time, which is the project command, and we're gonna just reference our subsequent sketches based on the primary one. Also, the primary one is known as the master sketch too. So you're just reference that, and then I'm gonna add a layer, a layer, a layer on top of each other. And you'll see that that will actually be sufficient for us to CAD these three objects. So let's go ahead and get started on Creo. Alrighty, so now we're back in Creo, which means we can get started with today's demo. So the tools that we'll be covering today involve Spline and Sketch Picture. These are, as I was saying earlier, two very important tools because you can do all sorts of things. And as you'll see with the variety of projects that we have lined up for today, it's quite extensive, the sort of results that you'll be able to arrive with those two tools just alone. It's possible, I was just thinking that for the strings of the ukulele, the guitar, and the marine core, we might need to use one last tool, which is called sweep, because I think some of the geometries might be a little bit more complex. But otherwise, we should be able to make everything else using the tools that we learned just previously on session 1 and today on session 2. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So I'm going to go here to new part, and I'm going to call this one ukulele right away because that's what we're going to be designing in a moment, and we'll use that as an example. Go here to OK. And now we have our ukulele file open in here. As you may remember, I'll go here to File, Prepare, Model Properties, and I just want to make sure that I'm going to change it to my favorite units in here, centimeter gram second, set. I'll go here to OK, close, and you see it appears there, so that's great. We'll use that later. Close. So now what we can start doing is illustrating these two commands. So let's begin with going here to sketch. I'm gonna select this facing here, go here to sketch. And now our tool, it's called spline right here. So I'm gonna click in there. What does spline do? It's super simple. It's almost like drawing, or it's like tracing little points around a drawing, and you have essentially formed a curve. For instance, I can click in here, then go there, and so on. Let me just zoom out and make a funny looking shape. And I'll go all the way like that. And once I'm happy with the curve that I've arrived to, I click on remember, the ball button of the mouse, and voila, we made a spline. So this is a flexible curve per se. It's not quite easy to define. Here it provides some dimensions with respect to that point at that point, but the reality is that it's really not fully defined because you could think of this as a polynomial in some way that is just being interpolated through all of those points. If you don't like where those points are, you can just grab one of them and drag them around. The key every time that you draw a spline is to realize that the more points that you have, the more control they're going to have over the curvature of that spline. So it's important that you have patience. Sometimes I personally don't have a lot of patience, so I do like 3 points and I expect the spline to look perfect, but the reality is that the more points, the better. And you can arrive to a better result like that. So suppose that was, I mean, we're gonna make this properly in a moment, but suppose that was the shape of your ukulele. It's enough for you to just do half of this, because now what you could do is click on this line and you can see like, actually look at, pay attention to this panel over here. The minute that I click, I am already enabling that little button in there that's called mirror. So what I can do is mirror that along that center line in there, and look, now we have a nice, perfectly symmetric shape. We're gonna be using that a lot once we do the ukulele in just a minute, but that's like an important note to have in mind. So that's essentially spline. If I move one of the points in here, however, it doesn't seem to be updating on the other side, so perhaps be very sure about what your overall shape is before you do that. These two are independent of each other, which may be a good or bad thing depending on what you want. But this is not really, yes, do you want to, yes. This is not really what I came to speak to you today, because now we've learned how to use Spline, which is gonna be one of our main tools today. But how about the sketch picture? So you'll go to where it says view, and then model display up here. And then you can go here to where it says images. So the first thing is nothing will appear. You have to go here to where it says import. And the next thing after import is to find a plane, which is something that is denoted down there. It's telling you have to find a plane. So I'm gonna find this one right here. And now it's gonna prompt it to find my picture, which I just downloaded. So I'll go here to ukulele, and you see that it appears right there. Good. There's a lot of things that I can do. I can move this around. I can, for instance, try to roughly, place it somewhere. For instance, there. You could make it bigger. You could do this thing over here that's called fit, where if I orient a point there and I orient a point there, and you told me, actually, let me just move that there. Click, and you told me that distance, because you happen to know it is 200, you can specify that, and it's gonna scale accordingly. And otherwise, oh, I don't want that fit command. Now that you actually fit it to your specified dimensions, you can move this. Super easy, like nothing too fancy. In fact, today really will probably leave it like this. The problem about using a sketch picture here in Creo, let me click OK and I'll illustrate that, is that you will see that it doesn't even appear in the feature tree. This is the area where every feature that we add would appear there. This is not even a feature. It's just something about the model display. You could bring more features, more pictures. You could potentially paste them on sides of your object as an example. But the reality is that, and for our purposes in here, you'll have to deal with them kind of separately, like hide one picture if you bring another one, so on and so forth. One aspect that I think it's super nice about this is that if I go back to model display to images, and you see that once again, it's the one picture that we have, there's a little tab in there that's called transparency, where you can make it less transparent or more transparent. I think that, honestly, I leave it at 50%. That seemed right. You can really do whatever you want. And now the key of what we're gonna do today is that I can start now doing back to model. I'll start doing a sketch here on this face. Yeah, so you see that this is not perfectly aligned where I would have preferred this to be, which is the middle. So and I cannot really move the picture to one side or the other one. So let me try and figure out to move that 1 second. So let me go here to cancel. Let me go back here to tools, no, view, model picture, images. Okay, that seems to be roughly in the middle. So now, yes, we can go back here to model, then over to sketch, and I'll hit this plane here, sketch. It's all right. I think it's not going to be such a big problem. So what we can start drawing in here is go all the way to our friend, the spline. I'm going to draw a line that goes all the way like that. There we go. So that's roughly the middle. So I'm gonna go here to line and construction. So I wanna make a nice reference in here that will kind of mark. I'm gonna trace this line maybe all the way up to there, just like that. We're gonna suppose that this line here is the middle of our ukulele. So not that one, but that one in here. So why is this relevant? Because, well, first, what I'm gonna do in here is, yes, I'll specify that as 20. Let's see what happens in there. Good. So now that becomes black, as you may remember. And I'll leave that as 38.6, because why not? That way, at least we have some form of reference. And now we can go here to, I'm gonna click in this bad boy, then go to mirror and let's select that guy in there so you can see how it appears accordingly on the other side. So now we have our second side, and I'm gonna complete this using another center line. Oh, another construction line that will go like that. So now the key in here is to have the patience to look at this picture that we have here in the background and try to, for now, replicate the overall shape of what we have in our ukulele. So I'll go here and, I'll try to draw a straight line that goes all the way like that. But as you can see, it kind of, there we go. It doesn't like the curvature much. In fact, look at what happened. I may need, what I'll probably end up doing is I'll draw a center line that goes all the way, no, a center, just a regular line that goes all the way there. And I'm always gonna be building this on halves. And once I have my half written down, then I drawn down, I can mirror it again. So I'm going all the way to that point, and I'm gonna come and do a regular line. There we go, all the way like that. And now, with a regular line, you connect that point and that point. So it's useful in this particular case not to directly draw a point, but to actually have it, you have 2 points marked in there, and I'm just connecting those. So we have that part in there. That's great. Let's see whether I can go all the way like that. So just like a little thickness that you have in there. And now I'm gonna use again the spline. And I will use it, there we go, to mark those points. And one thing that I can do is I can go to where it says tangent, clicking that line, and clicking that line, and see how it's saying it's like equal curvature, which is a very nice thing. So that's working well. I'm gonna extend my construction line to go all the way up to here. There we go, because now we can draw a regular line that comes like that with that diagonal orientation. And what I can do is click on these two. Actually, I should go to where it says tangent, that line and that line, and see how it nicely changes the curvature in there to be matching those. Good. So we have that shape in there. So now maybe the last thing that we should do is finish the curvature, right? And then we'll add fillets, and this is gonna look nice. But this is really to get the overall outline of our ukulele. So we're gonna go like that, and alongside the spline, there we go. I think that's perfect. Good. Okay, so we're gonna leave this part like that. So now what we can do is click on all of these guys that we have right here and go here to mirror along there, and voila. The best part is that you've done a decent job when this becomes shaded. So that indicates that it's a fully connected body in here, surface. But we're not quite done, because now we have to add a few more details, right? Like the circle, we're gonna add all of those. And really this sketch one that we're drawing right here, we're gonna use it as a future reference for things that we'll do in the future. This is gonna act as our master sketch. And everything else that we do from now onwards is gonna be projected sketches out of this one. And we're gonna build this like a cake. You'll see what I mean in a minute. And then we'll look at some pictures to try to get a reference out of this. For instance, if I draw a circle roughly here, okay, good. This is mostly fine, and we can add those little details in there, right? Why not, right? We have the power to do so. I am gonna add one more detail in there, but that's something I'm gonna do later using the offset entities command that we're gonna come back to later. One thing that we could do is, yes, we can add that little like border for that. Honestly, what we could do is, I'm gonna draw a line that comes here. And you see that now that's following just exactly the diagonal option of that. I'm gonna connect it all the way like that. So what we can do is now click in here, do a nice little mirror along there, good. And then we can do a little 3-point arch. There we go. And it's gonna come like that. But what I should have done is select all of those lines. Let's see if I can. There we go. I'm gonna make them solid lines. Perfect. So we got that. What else can we add here? So let's add this little back piece in here. So I like the way the strings are kind of connected in this particular ukulele. Even though I have like a bunch of these pictures, this is the one that I'm starting from. This is where we're gonna base the front, like at the top, and a little bit. I was actually thinking for going for this design instead. I think it's kind of neat. And this is just like a few other pictures to get the, how does it look like on the back. We're gonna model all of that. And this is someone actually playing it. In fact, I'm gonna also, did I taper? No, well, left it like that. But let me come back to this portion in here. So we're gonna make that a rectangle instead. So I'll come here, and I want things to be symmetrical more than anything. So the way to ensure symmetry is by using the center rectangle. So we can say you want that to be like that, as an example, right? That might actually be, that be too big relative to, I think that's gonna be fine. Right. Well, maybe that's something. Actually, I might model it based off from this one. There we go. And I'm gonna make that a construction just like that, and then I'll complete. Oh, see why. There we go. Good. And now we can go back to our frame mirror. So let me select all of these. Just like that. Or just making sure that I'm not moving. Every time I move something, other parts of the sketch could be moving as well. Okay, so we're gonna leave this mostly like that. So now the last part that remains from here is that I'm actually gonna go through and add each one of those rectangles that you see in there. I just have to make sure that they are the correct length and whatnot. This is gonna be fun. Um, Maybe I'm actually thinking that I'm gonna click OK. I'm gonna leave that like this, and I might do this on a new sketch. So I'll go here to sketch, I'll select that face, okay. And now what I can do is go here to my friend, the project command, and bring all of just honestly those guys. There we go, just like that. Good. I'm just gonna make them construction lines, as you can see there. Good. So what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna speed it up from here, is I'm gonna add all of these little tiny lines in there. So let's see how that goes. Alrighty, so now I just did one last item, which is hiding the picture, as you just saw from the last few seconds. So now we have essentially like a vector design of our ukulele, and honestly, this looks kind of nice, to be honest. I like this design. So now the fun can actually begin in actually doing something cool with all of this stuff. So how do you go about doing that? Well, what you would need to do is go here to our friend model, and let's go to sketch, and I'll go over to, I know that's the wrong plane, cancel. Yes, go here to sketch. In here, I want to choose that plane there, sketch. So now what we can do is go to project. Where are you? In here, and I'm gonna select that line and that line and hit OK. And then I'm gonna connect these two using a center line. So that becomes shaded. So what we can do is now exit and give that some volume. We're gonna extrude downwards by, let's see, 100. 100. That's too much. We're gonna kind of do this by like just whatever scale is good for us. So honestly, this is fine, even though I'm gonna show you a little trick of something that we're gonna do. No, what, 45, I think that's gonna be the perfect amount. I say, okay, good. We can do better than this. I'm gonna go over to where it says shell. I'll select this face in here, and we're gonna immediately shell this out by 3. Let's see how would that look like. I think that's fine. Honestly, this looks pretty good, because now what we can do is go here to our friend sketch, over here, good. And now I'm gonna select sketch. And we can project, where are you? So most of the time I lose is just from trying to find commands. I'll select these two guys there. And what we can do, model, actually, sorry for that, sketch. Okay, now yes, we can extrude, remove material. Okay. So now we have that part of the little ukulele done. So this is really as much as we'll do here in the interior, because we can come here, go to sketch on that face. Okay. And now I can go over to my friend, the projection. Where are you? And I'm gonna select this guy, that guy, and that guy, because it's almost like an offset. I'll say, okay, then I'm happy with my sketch. And now we're gonna, if we set 3 millimeters, we're gonna bring that 3 millimeters down. So essentially what we have is, yes, now that's photo. So that's kind of looking nice. So we're gonna slowly, in that way, add materials little by little. So for instance, if you wanted to add that little detail in there, I'm gonna go here to sketch. In fact, there's a way, because if you see there's like also like a black border all around it, that could be added. There's no reason why not. So the way to do that is I'm gonna first go over to project. Oh, let's do one by one. Now we can extrude that, or we're gonna extrude by 0.1, like something. Oh, honestly, minimal. Let me actually edit that and say 0.01. There we go. That way at least you can see those markings in there. And now I'll do here a sketch on this face and say, okay, and we can do a very similar thing. I can go over to project commands and go all of those and say, okay. And now they're friendly offset. Although I kind of want to make this rule base, let's say complete loop. And suppose I want that to be like 3, which seems roughly maybe less. I'll say okay. I'll give it to, I'll say okay, good. Well, let's make that 2.8 or 2.5. Good. And we do the same thing. I say okay, extrude 0.01. So slowly our little guitar is taking shape. Now this is where the step where we need to start looking at pictures. So for instance, if we look here, you see that little piece in there is extruded, and the same thing if we look at you can also see it from that direction. So we'll do that, and then we're gonna extrude all of those other pieces in there. So I'm also realizing that maybe that goes down too. So I'm gonna add that detail too in a second. In fact, let me see. I'm gonna actually work on that first. So I'll go here to sketch, to a sketch on that face. So what I'm gonna do is go here to offset. We're gonna select as always rule-based complete loop, and they are okay, okay. We're gonna make that 0.1. Something again millimetric, right? But it's okay. I'll say good. And now actually I do wanna go back to that sketch. And now we're gonna project that line, and that line. Good. I'll say fine. So what we can do is extrude. So you see it's like a very thin shell. We're gonna remove material, and we're gonna say that we wanna remove, I don't know, like 42. Are we removing? There we go. Okay. So now you can see that little piece, how it shows up in there. Maybe we could do a little bit more. Let's see. Excellent. We'll do the same thing on the downside part of this too, because now what I can say is we'll do a sketch here on that face. Let's say good. Now what I want to do is now project. So I'm gonna go over to my friend the projection. We're gonna select that. We are gonna select that. We're gonna select that. Let's say okay. Good. I just wonder 1 second. Yes, that should be fine. And now we are gonna project also that line, or not that line. We'll do that line, and this line. Good. So now we have that thickness. I'll say okay, extrude, opposite direction, just fire. So now this is, starting to look like a proper little ukulele in there. I mean, it's the small details that matter, right? This is just showing you some of the things that you can do. But now what matters is that I'm gonna go here to sketch all the way to this face in here. And now we can add the more important piece, which is that one in here. Because if we look at this, well, our particular ukulele doesn't have the slanted part, which is fine because that we can do, but we'll need to wait until a few sessions later when we learn how to do slanted planes. So for now, we'll just make it straight, as you see there. but this is mostly the same piece, even though at one point it changes material. So how about we do, I'm gonna go here to my friend projection. Let's do this line, that line, that line. There we go. All the way like that. Good. So let's initially bring all of this up. So how would you do that? Well, I'm gonna go here to, well, actually to sketch. Let's save. And now extrude, and we're gonna extrude that by 3. Do you think 3 is enough? Maybe about 5. Maybe 4. Honestly, I'm always so there. I think this should be fine. And then we're gonna have obviously more thickness to this later as we go through. And that changes material there, exactly. So you see it gets a little bit thicker. What I do not know is in this particular version whether that's the case or not. I think I will probably change it later. If you wanted that to be a slightly different color, what you can do is go here to sketch into this face. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is project just this portion in there, and I'm gonna draw a straight line that comes like that, and we are gonna bring that downwards by 0.1. Which is fine, but then we're gonna have a little brick there anyways. But this, you see, it's slowly starting to take place, a shape, I mean. So let's do, now that I'm thinking about it, let's add the little rivets in there. So how do we do that? Well, what we'll actually need to do now is I'm gonna hide this sketch. And there we go, because I don't need it. And I will also hide this one for now. So what I'm gonna do is a new sketch that's gonna be on that face. And now what I would like to do is see whether I can project. Let's see. Complete loop. So let's see if I can start with that too. So I have to do one at a time, it seems like. Oh, to project. That's much better. I should have just clicked for all curves on feature. Good. So now a ton of curves, but that's fine because I'll go here to OK, and now extrude. And these guys, we're gonna extrude by like 2. Actually, even less, to be honest. Like it depends on how much thickness, maybe like 1.5 or 1. Excellent. And now what we can do is hide sketch 2. Oh, I see one thing. Let me edit this thing. There we go. I want. Let's see whether this will work. Alright, so there we go. So it turns out that if you had done a little offset in there in all of those rectangles, they would actually generate properly without the surface, but really as an extrude box. That's what we can see here. So maybe what I suggest before we continue is that we start to add a few of the little details in here. Um, Actually, you know what? Before we actually do that, I think what we can do is add this little column in here. And I have a few thoughts on how you'd be able to do that. Perhaps the first one that comes to mind is the following one, where I'm gonna do a sketch here on that face, and I'm gonna bring all of that down, and then I'm gonna do a cut through it. So how do you do that? Well, actually, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna project that line there. I kind of, there we go. Just like a very tiny, tiny line, but that will make the difference. So now we're gonna continue projecting. I'm gonna choose that, uh, and honestly, yes, we can do all of these. So let's do okay. So now we're gonna bring this all the way down because that's really where it begins, and then we're gonna give this some curvature. So let's see. In fact, if we had wanted this to stable, we could have made it slanted, but it's gonna cause some troubles when we add a little bit of the strings later. So we'll leave this like that. But what do we have in here? So let's see. Okay. So let's extrude, and I'm gonna say here up to reference, which is gonna be that face. I'll say okay. And now that we have it just like that, I can go over to, oh, let's see, what would be a good way of doing that? Um, I think we might need to break the rules here because I do need a plane that is like parallel to this one in here. So let me add this, let's say 200. And so negative 200. I will go over a few of these things, but the reason why I need this plane that I'm showing you right now is because I need to sketch on this plane. So I'll go here to sketch over there. And now what we can do is go over to our friend, the project command, and I'm gonna just project a few of those lines, just like that. Because these lines in here, they act as a reference of where we are. So now I can do roughly a cut. Well, and you know what I will need, what else will I need from here? I need these lines too. So let me, since I'm here, I'm gonna project all of them. So I'll project this, and I'll project that as well. We'll say, okay, good. So we know that at least it's gonna be flat up to here. Um, there we go. So it has to continue all the way like that. So we're gonna draw a shape that goes roughly like this. So let's see how would that look like. So we'll go over to first there to give it a little bit of thickness. And now we'll go to spline. You can see this doesn't look quite well, so I'll have to play around with getting the curvature right. But it seems like honestly what I should do instead is really draw like a regular line that's gonna go like this. Wait. I'm gonna draw two lines as a matter of fact. There we go. While these two, there we go, are gonna be construction. So I'm gonna leave these roughly there. And now with our friend the spline, what we can do is, there we go. And I'm gonna make those two parts tangent. So let's find this. Excellent. So we'll leave it like that. Good. And now what I have to do is finish this by going all the way. Actually, I'm gonna go all the way like that. Now we have this completed shape. When I click on OK, so what we can do from here is the following thing. I can go there and say remove material. We're gonna change the direction. Interesting that gonna cancel. Yes. Well, let me try again. There we go. Now we're talking. So at least we get that cut. So that was the part that was complicated. So now this becomes fun in the sense that now I can start to give this a little bit of curvature in the air. And I kind of like that it stays like thick. Let me see, let me try what happens if I go here to round. Comes all the way there, I see. I mean, it doesn't look necessarily bad. I might, for the purpose of simplicity, it's possible that I might leave this like this. To be fair, maybe what I'm thinking is if I change the radii a little bit, let me play around with that. All right, there we go. I was just playing around with changing the curvature here, but I kind of like the way this is looking like right now. Maybe one thing that I would perhaps change from here is just maybe I'm gonna go here to sketch over to this face, and I'm gonna go over to, I'm gonna draw a quick rectangle that's gonna go like this. Let me see if I can move this guy to be roughly there. It doesn't matter really, because I'm gonna just make a quick removal of material by 0.1. Let's see whether this works and say, okay, that way it's clear that that's a different piece. That's why I make that. And since we have that, we could also, round this in here too, which I think now we should be able to do, but I think that's too much, or maybe I'll do like 3 there we go. So this is looking nice now. Excellent. So perhaps with the details that we're left to be done in here, I want to add maybe a very subtle chamfer of 0.5. How would that look like? And they are here. Oh, it failed. I see. Mm, let me see if I make it round. Well, that took a while in there, but I was just trying to modify some parts. I was not quite satisfied with the look of the ukulele. Obviously, this is our take, and by the way, there are better tools to model certain things that would go in that particular part, which are loft in particular, but that we're gonna learn later on. So with the time that we have remaining for now, let's actually try to finish this up. So when it comes to the strings, this is the technique that we're gonna use. So I need to now show again that sketch in there, and we're gonna do a little sketch on this face, and we're gonna project these guys. Sorry, there we go. I'm gonna bring them in here and say, okay, now I can actually hide that again, but again, There we go. Then bring that guy up by, let's say, actually we'll need to bring it up by quite a bit. Let's say 8. Okay. I think that should be mostly fine. So now that we have that, then we're gonna place the circles and then we're gonna do the final magical step, as I would like to say. So maybe that could be 7, I think. Well, to be honest, this has to be, I'm gonna place it up to that height. Okay, good. So we have that piece in there, even though if we did want to give it, say, we go back here, that curved shape like that, that is possible to, we can model that too. In fact, I might actually do that. Actually, no, I think I can leave it like that. I'll just chamfer that to be, no, that's too much. We can leave it like that. But now we have to go here to sketch, over to this face in there. Good. And now I need to, yes, exactly. We need to show that because we are gonna project all of those. So in here, rule based, all curves on feature. There we go. Okay. So we have our circles. I'll say good. I don't need that anymore. But what I'm gonna do is extrude those guys up by a certain amount, which could be like 3. I think that's fine. And then we're gonna extrude them downwards, obviously. But that's gonna be a step that will happen later. Not yet. What we can do with these little guys is we can also chamfer them all. Let's see. I think I'm in the wrong surface. There we go. Like that. It is possible that I might need to bring this down a little bit more, so I might do that. I'm gonna go here to edit. Let's make that 2, actually. Good, so we're gonna leave those pegs like that. And now sketch over in that face. So what we can do is a few, uh, actually I'm gonna project all of these guys like that. Good. And I'm just gonna draw a bunch of other circles that are gonna represent the middle pegs that are going here. I go just like that. Good. And yeah, that could be 5. Is gonna represent those little pieces here. You can see that, yes, maybe it's even more angle, I would say. But I think that's fine. And we are gonna bring those guys up by 5. Just like that. I think that's fine. In fact, we could also bring these guys down too. One thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna edit. Where are you? There we go. So I'm gonna change that. No, it's not the one that I wanted. Yeah, well, I'm gonna make that 1.5 actually. That way it's saying nice and clear in there. Meanwhile, these pegs, what I can now do is make them round. There we go. Just like that, and we can make that 2. Actually, for all of them. I'll make them 2. There we go. I'll say, okay. Actually, I don't like how it looks like. Maybe I'll do 1.5. I just change that very quickly. But then what we're gonna add, which is gonna be really the last detail after we're done with this piece, is the piece that you would do to turn them around. I'll just save this. I leave this here. Okay, I think that's actually decent. Yeah, there's like a mark in there and whatnot. So now comes the fun part. Even though there's just one last thing that I want to do, which is on extrude 23. I'm also actually I'm gonna leave this again, and then I'll come back to that in a minute. So, how do we add the strings? Is the magical question in here. Well, what I'm gonna do right now is a sketch on this face in here. And I'm just gonna draw a line that will go like that. And this line in here, I'm just gonna make it a construction. I just want it as a reference, but I'm gonna use it so that I can more or less draw where I'm gonna have these guys. So they all come up to a point like there, and then it goes like diagonally like that. So let's try to replicate some of that. So this goes. So maybe it would be a great point to do a projection of this line as well. And that we are gonna, sorry. There we go. See if we can make that coincident in here. I'm gonna delete actually this line. I'm gonna draw something that's gonna go from, roughly that point in there all the way. Actually, maybe I would say, I think that's fine. Yeah. So this in here can represent our first chord. So I'm gonna provide some dimensions to that. We can say that's 1.2. Meanwhile, our second chord, if the distance between here and here is, actually, I would need to do another line. Or, there we go. Let's make that construction. I'm gonna bring that there. There we go. And I'm gonna come with this one all the way. Actually, that is incorrect because I will leave that one there, but I'm gonna draw it from roughly here. And this is gonna come like that. Good. This seems roughly fine. The thing is that, okay, so if distance between there and there is like 5, let's see what's the distance between here and there. Oh, so I'm gonna make, that was 5 and that was like roughly 7. Let's make that 2. That way the distance between here and here, it's like 8. Okay, so that's roughly, this seems that it's gonna be roughly gonna work right there. The challenge is that now, if we look at these lines, this one kind of goes, what I would need to do is go here to construction mode and project project all of these 2 circles in there. Good. So this one kind of goes like this, while that one kind of goes like that. Okay, so now we have a rough understanding of how our lines are gonna work. So this is almost good. I think I might move this a tiny bit more towards there, where the strings look better. But these two lines that we're seeing in here will act as the basis for the splines, for the sweeps that we're gonna do in just a minute. So they're gonna go all the way to the inside in there. I think it's gonna work well. The question is that maybe they should have been elevated a little bit more. So I'm gonna click here on OK. I think this is fine. Now what we need to do is, again, I'm gonna kind of doing a hack in here, but I want to do a translation of maybe 2, maybe 1, to be honest. Okay, good. And I'm gonna do a sketch in that face. And what I'll do from here, this is where the things get kind of funny, is that now I'm gonna project this line in here and that line. And now we have our piece. So you can see that, look, it should have been this piece is taller, so it doesn't even reach that point. So that means that we need to lower down that base a little bit more, which is something that can be done. In fact, I'm gonna click here in OK. I just have to figure out that, I think it was that. We'll bring it down by 0.5. No, I mean, that looks there. Now, yes, our string is gonna come right there. Okay. So we have most of what we need right now. So what we're gonna do is the following thing. I'm gonna go here to say sweep, and it's gonna first prompt me to select this chain, which you can see going all the way like that. And then when it comes to sketch, I think, yeah, that should be fine. It's a, what it detected is here, it's a, using the normal, I'm just gonna draw a little circle that goes like that. And we provide that data. Oh, actually, it recognizes it's 0.5, but that was anyways what I wanted to do. I'll say, okay, good. And now what you can see is that indeed it generated a string, which is kind of cool. But what I'm gonna do is go back to our plane, edit, and I'm gonna raise that to be 2 instead. That where our string is should be slightly, did it change? And this is how we deal with that, kind of simply in there. So that's how it's digging all the way there. So that's kind of like a neat way of generating that string, as you can see in there. What I might end up doing is once I generate the next string, I will create a little piece that it's gonna kind of represent where this will be attached. So I'm gonna get to that in just a second. So let me go over to the next string. So for that, this sketch 28, I can actually hide it because I don't want it. That one, I need to show it again. So we're gonna do a new sketch on DMT2 in there, okay. And this time we are gonna project, or are you, this line and that line. I would say, okay, good, we're happy with that. And now I'm gonna hide again that one because I don't need it. And now we can do the final step, which is doing a sweep. So we're gonna select again that line, it recognizes perfectly. We'll do a sketch, and I promise I will go over all of this stuff again So this time it's from here, which is fine. Let's make that one. Good. Excellent. And we have our second string. Let's wrap this up by making a little hole in there. Just round it. That way it's as if it was just getting into that peg in there. And then we're kind of about done, to be honest. What I might do is I'm gonna hide that guy because I don't need it. Same thing with this guy in there. I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. Good. So what we can do is start to mirror some stuff. So I'm gonna go all the way. Oh, actually, I do realize that I will need um, one piece. So what I'll do is I'll go here to sketch all the way here. And what I need to do is draw a line right over there. That's gonna act as a little center line. And then I'm gonna draw a little rectangle that's gonna come just like that. And I'm gonna make sure that the distance in here is, let's say 4. And let's do the distance from there to there. Let's also make that 4. And let's make that 15 because why not? And that guy, we're gonna bring it up by, let's say, actually 2 might be 2.5. Good. Vamos a now with the mirror, because what I'll do is go all the way to, where are you here? Select the, all the way there, so I select these guys there. We have all of those, go over to mirror. So ask me for mirror plane, I'll select that face, and voila. And we have all of our strings, but we're not quite done because I'm gonna go here to chamfer and I'm gonna take that free. Oh, it had to be 2.5, let's see. There we go. Good. Now I'm gonna do the same thing over there. A little 0.5. I kind of like this, to be honest. It's kind of resulting to be better than I had anticipated. I think. So I might leave this as is, the art. Actually, let me see what happens if I chamfer. Hmm. Actually, I kind of like it. Yeah, it was just those two edges. Almost done here because the next piece that we're going to modify is this block over here. So for that, we're going to look at how that is supposed to be structured. And you'll see that the strings are not supposed to be floating, but rather they should be a little bit high up. So what we can do is go here to sketch, over to that face, and I can just project all of these lines right there, click on OK. And we can bring them up by some amount. So for instance, I'll say OK, and then I'll go here to extrude, But we're not gonna extrude that much. We'll extrude maybe like a centimeter. Actually, a centimeter works perfectly. And say, okay. And based off from this, now yes, we can round in there and leave it like that. We got our full ukulele. So now we have to do the last part, which is the adjustment piece in there. So we got most of our stuff in here. I think there's a sketch, which is sketch 29, that we would need to hide. So how do we do the pegs on the bottom? Well, that is not complicated at all, because we go here to sketch and click on OK. And now what we'll do is go here to project, and we will project all of those circles. We'll click on OK. And now we'll bring those down by actually an initial amount of, let's say, 10. So the question is that now this is where I have to look again in here. So this one is done. This is done. I mean, I might need these for the colors later. So how do the pegs work? So it's like roughly those circles, and then it's to the side, it has like a little structure. So how can you model that? So maybe, let's say 5, something along those lines. I'm gonna leave it like that. It's actually, perhaps it's a little bit thicker, as you'll see, so that is something we could modify. For instance, I could go back to, let me go edit these sketches in here. I'll make them all construction. Let me see if I can do that. And I will just make these circles bigger. We can make that. Let's see. Yes, just slightly on that size, but that should be fine. So these are extending right there, which is exactly what we want. So now we can do another sketch in here that's gonna represent little. So we need to do, actually, I'm gonna do lines that go like this. There we go. And now we can draw rectangles that go like that. By the way, functions that would be much simpler if we use the circular pattern approach instead, but this is okay. I think these guys should be fine. Maybe we'll make them 8 there just for fun. We'll say, okay, I'm gonna extrude up by, I mean, it was 10. No, it was 5. I'll say, okay, I'm gonna leave that there, but at least if we look back at those functions, what we would need to now do is change one little thing, which is the following thing. In fact, that I'm gonna make all of, yes, let me take that 2.5. I'm gonna make them all rounded in there, good. And now I'm gonna go back to the scheduler in here, and I'm gonna go all the way to project. Where are you? Here. There we go. Let's say good. Okay. And now we're gonna extrude those slightly by 0.5. Which clearly delineated, and then we'll make the remaining details from there. But the most important thing is that now we could extend like a little circle from here. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing is I'll do it just on one side because then it's symmetric, right? So this should be easier. So I'll go here to construction line. Excellent. So I'll just bring it all the way to that point. And now we'll do a circle, oh, not that big. We'll do 2 circles. And we can make these 4. And now we'll say, okay, extrusion. So I just want to look at, yes, how I'm going to make the little pegs from there. I just want to make sure that they're going to be fine. Excellent. Just this should be okay. And let's do 13. An example. I think that should be okay. I'll click good. And now that I've done that side, I can actually complete this by doing a 0.5. Let's see. Yeah. I might adjust the size of these circles. Let me, wait. No, not those. Here. So make actually that 3.5. Good. Okay. So now this is slowly starting to look. So let's finish this page. So how would you do that? Well, we'll go here to sketch all the way here. And now what we can do is draw the following thing. So as we saw, it kind of extends nicely from there. So we could draw a diagonal that goes like this. So we can make, I think it already recognizes that these 2 lines should be the same. Good. Yeah, why not? Let's make that 115. Oh, that's too much. 140. Why not? Let's make that 6. What we could do is a little arch, or maybe a little line that goes like this. Yeah, that's perpendicular. That's perpendicular. Maybe it could be worth giving that a size, and then we'll draw a little arch. There we go, and it's exactly tangent. So then we can click on this line, and that line. We can do a mirror around there. Good. So we have one of the pegs design. Let's do this one over here. Actually, so I think it's recognizing exactly what we want. See if it knows. There we go. Right. Let me just draw another line that's gonna go. Excellent, just like that. And we're gonna go D, click in there, 0.5. And now let's draw an arch that's gonna come right there. And now let's do the mirror. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. So where are you? Mirror around there. Good. So we're almost done, right? I promise this time around. So I'm gonna click here in OK. So what we can do is extrude those two by like those little fins. 15. Although to be honest, maybe I would have liked it at a different orientation, to be honest. And then this, we'll see. Maybe they're too large. Leave them like that. At least what we can do is around, let's see how much I can push this. And this is the sort of situation where maybe this conic case, we give that like an 8. No, we can leave that at a 5, make that an 8. Let's see. Hmm. There we go. So I might need to make that a 7. Do that in all of these. Right. Final step. Let's actually mirror all of this stuff, which begins as early as, I think it's on 29. So let's do them like that. Let's click here on, oh, but I do need a mirror plane that I do not have. So what I can do is, let me see whether, let's select this face and that face. So that's a way of creating a, like a middle, no, actually didn't. Let me go here to plane. Okay, I think it recognized now our creating our plane. So now, yes, we can do a final mirror with all of these features. So let's go here, the mirror. That's fine. Let's go, okay, why not? And now I'm just gonna do, oh, no, that has to be 0.5. So you do that manually in here, and I'm gonna hide you. And since we're here, we could give that a little chamfer. Hmm. Okay, we're almost done. This is essentially complete. We just need to, well, first save this in here. And now we have to color this. So I'm gonna speed color all of this stuff.
Alrighty, here you go. This is the ukulele. It took a little bit, but I think this should be looking fine. We'll follow the techniques that we learned today. Thank you for sticking along, and we're gonna continue hopefully in a little bit with the electric guitar and then with the Marine Corps, right? Alrighty, so now that we've done the ukulele, we're gonna continue for our next project, which as you can see from the picture right here, is gonna be our electric guitar. But just not any kind of electric guitar, but this model in particular, which is pretty quintessential, and I've seen multiple times in the past, which is called the Fender Standard, I think, Stratocaster. I think that's how it's pronounced. These are pretty interesting guitar design. Um, and I think it dates back to the 1950s, if I'm not mistaken. And a lot of famous musicians have used it to play. And it's just a very beautiful design. I think it's quite gorgeous when you look at it at first glance like this. So that's what we're gonna be taking a look at right now here in Creo. So I'm taking this picture in here, I've saved it, and now we're gonna bring it in just a moment, and we're gonna use the exact same technique as we used before. We're gonna trace it, we're gonna add as many details as we can in there, and then following that, what we're gonna start doing is that we're gonna start creating layers by layers, and building this as if it was a cake, just like before. This might actually be as complex, if not easier, than the ukulele. So maybe starting from here, I'm gonna speed over, and then I'm gonna pause in certain portions where I wanna show you how I'm doing certain aspects. So let's do that. Alrighty, so now we have most of the electric guitar traced out, as you can see here. So this is, as I like to say, it's like a nice picturized image. And you know, the more time that you take and the more details that you can add, the better this is gonna look. And I think honestly, looking at this picture, it looks quite all right. So now the key from here, which is essentially what we've done with ukulele just recently, is that to take each one of these sketches individually and add volume a little bit at a time. So that's the process that I'm gonna start doing now. I think I'll probably speed it up because it's essentially the same procedure, but just to let you know that I'm gonna select each one of these sketches individually because I've created them all in different ways, such that whenever I'm gonna create my new sketches, I'm gonna project certain parts only. That way it doesn't get too messy. So hopefully you can take a look around and pause it whenever you think it's necessary to understand how I did certain things. This is the electric guitar. I think it took a while, but I think I'm pretty satisfied with the overall results. At least this is a, an approximation, right? It doesn't need to be perfect. So yeah, so hopefully you'll found some of these commands and tutorials useful, and we're gonna continue next with the Mongolian violin. Alrighty, so now we've done the ukulele, we've done the electric guitar, which means we have one final project left for session 2, which is going to be the Marine Corps, which is the instrument that you can see right here. Which, by the way, I realized just now that I've been pronouncing it Kur when I think it's a silent K, so maybe it's actually Hur. If someone can correct me online, hopefully we'll figure out the correct pronunciation. But the thing I do know is that it looks like this, and it's essentially a two-string violin, or like a simplified version of it. I have a couple of pictures to get a few views. We're gonna be using these. And as you can see already from the design, it doesn't look particularly complex to do. We're gonna use the same techniques. It's a combination of ukulele and electric guitar, maybe a fewer details than with those two. But we're gonna start by first taking this picture, the one that we have right here. We're gonna trace it all out, at least up to here. Then we might do the handles afterwards, right? We'll trace the picture, and then we'll add the box, and then we'll add the bow, then we'll add the side view in there. We'll add those details in here. Then we're gonna draw this piece in here that's called the bridge. I have a picture in here that we're gonna bring as well. We're gonna rotate this and trace it all out. That way it looks nice. And then when it's time to draw the head, which is like a horse head, in here, obviously that is too detailed, as you can see there. We're not gonna do that because we're not quite yet there. Instead, I'm gonna take this picture and I'm gonna trace the outline. And I think that's gonna be good enough for us in there. We'll see. Maybe we can add a few more details, but at least we'll start with the outline and then we'll take it from there. Then we'll finish with the handles and by adding the strings. So we'll see how long this takes. So now I'm gonna speed it up, and I'll show you how I'm gonna do this, and then if at some point I'll pause it to show you something else. But for now, this is the overall strategy. So let's do it.
Once a jealous swagman, camped by the billabong, under the shade of the coolabom of tree, and he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. Come a waltz, Matilda, with me. Waltz, Matilda, waltz, Matilda, you come a waltz, Matilda, with me. And he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. You come a waltz, Matilda, with me. Waltz, Matilda, waltz, Matilda, you come a waltz, Matilda, with me. And he sang as he watched and waited till his billy boiled. You come a waltz, Matilda, with me.
it, folks. Thank you for sticking along all the way through. This is the marine curve. I think it looks quite decent compared to, the actual picture. In here, I was basing it off just last minute to trying to get the colors right. And I mean, it looks decent overall. Obviously, this is our take. Next session, on session 3, I'm gonna go over some of the commands that I may have employed over the course of the marine curve, the electric guitar, and the ukulele that were a little bit more complex, and I didn't think I would need them in order to make this design, but I ended up needing. Namely, for instance, how did I create the sweep to make the chords of the, like just hear the strings of the violin? The same thing goes for the guitar, and in this particular case, using 3D splines, which is once you've defined points in space, it allows you to, just interpret through all of them by creating either straight lines or a spline in the air. But well, at least we go to this level. I think this is all right. So I'll stop the video here and we'll see each other again next time. Bye bye.